Sean, we so appreciate you making some time for us today as we continue our conversation around mental health. You and I had a chance to meet a couple of years ago, and it really stuck with me. Some of the things that you said about why you got involved with Buffs for Life and kind of the direction of the organization. So let's just start with that. It's an organization, as far as I understand, it's been around for about 15 years or so, and its original purpose was to help former Colorado athletes and their families deal with a wide variety of medical problems. But a couple of years ago, you guys kind of refocused your efforts to look at suicide prevention specifically. What sparked that change in the focus of Buffs for Life?
Yeah, a lot did. I think in kind of the football ecosystem anyway, we've really seen more and more people start to open up about how they feel and some of the things they process when they come in a sport, out of sport, what gets them competing at their best, but then also what happens when the lights turn off, right? And identifying with that persona, again, having to recreate yourself at 22, 23 years old, maybe 30, maybe 19. And we started seeing a trend in the athletes we were supporting. As you said, we've been in operation for about, at that time, I think 14 or so years, and had seen more mental health topics pop up that were a little unexpected. We had that, and then two unfortunate suicides from our stakeholders, right? Rashawn Salam was about 3 months ahead of one of my teammates, Drew Walrus. And that kind of shined the light right in our face, and I think a lot of other people's as well, that, as tough as we are, there's also some parts that we tend to ignore. I think mental health is one of them.
So you talked about when the lights get turned off. How was it for you when the lights got turned off?
Yeah, not great. And I think anyone that would tell you they really had a plan for how they were going to exit football was probably trying to sell you something. I think it's something that you can prepare for your whole life, and it will come eventually. I think the nomenclature we use is really funny, right? I retired from the NFL at age 23. Like, I retired. I submitted paperwork to somebody on a legal form that said retirement. No other profession has that, right? Maybe the military, maybe some forms of like extreme, I don't know, maybe pilots retire early, but that's at 60, not 23, right? So the idea that you can be retired, that you've got enough money and you've got enough physical kind of duration to bump along the remaining 2/3 of your life is just totally obsolete. So my wife calls them my lost years when I was kind of finding myself. I would love to say I pursued Eastern paths, but I think, being young and energetic, I would say, chased some false idols and, went down paths that weren't accretive, right? Luckily I had a lot of great influences in my life, got a chance for someone to give me a job and have me go do something and be productive. And that turned into an MBA back at CU, actually. And then that turned into another career, and you kind of just keep building off that momentum. I speak to a lot of people and say that football is either a lever or a crutch. It'll be the best thing you've ever done and always be holding you back, preventing you from doing something greater, or it'll accelerate you and bring you up and out and give you more access and give you more of a platform, give you a better story to tell. And I think that's something that a lot of people take advantage of. But yeah, we're just starting to shine a light on those kind of crutch moments, if you will.
Was there a moment that you kind of felt like you came out on the other side? You talk about all the things you were able to do after you retired at the age of 23, but when did you feel like you kind of found your peace again and your purpose?
When I got my first, I left football saying I didn't want a career in sales, and I didn't work a desk job. And I think those were just ways of me hiding. I think not wanting to put myself out there and having to like spell in the public arena, right? That's one of my weak points, is spelling of all things. And having like a person to report to for some reason was really kind of toxic to me. But once I really swallowed my pride and went and took that first job and sat at the desk and realized all the cool stuff you could do from behind a keyboard, that's when things started to turn on for me, that your life can be so much more than like running into things for a living. You can actually provide really great frameworks and opportunities for people in a lot of different ways. So I think having that, it just popped into my head actually, having that rigor that football provided through a professional world, right? And having the day-to-day job, the 9 to 5, having that kind of security in what you were doing and the availability to be creative in that construct was really important for me.
When I was reading about you, I immediately sent a message to some of my former teammates. And I was like, yo, check this out. This is amazing. And I'd love for you to kind of break down how you set up the captains around this thing. It seems as though there's a couple players in Buffs for Life that are responsible for like 5 years, every 5 years, and checking in on guys. And how does that even work? Because I think no matter where you're from, like there's a world where you can glean from this and offer some support to your friends in your community.
Yeah, so I'm always going to be a Buff, right? And I care very, very diligently about my school, my program, my teammates, and all that. But that's still just a logo, right? The reason that logo is fulfilling and has power for me and has power for everybody else, whether it's the Yankees or the Black Sox, right, is because there's a shared camaraderie, right? There's a shared experience there, and that logo is just a representation. The logo is a representation of what you had with your teammates, what I had with mine. Like across every single aspect, you went through something together that always wore for me black and gold, and for someone else it was whatever Trojan color is. So we've really tapped into that network, that important group of 5 guys, where they went through something together that was special. And we think that's the best way to give mental health support back to our community, right? We could have a doctor, a PhD call. We could have a neuroscientist call. But having a friend call and say, hey, man, I'm worried about you, and here's why. And I don't know, and I can't solve your problems, but they can empathize, and they can encourage help-seeking behavior. And that's what our group focuses on. We have a PhD on the roster, but we rally around that kind of communal focus point and getting back to those roots more than anything. So we do have this team captain program where we have people who are influential in those communities who are always kind of checking in with people just because either they're social butterflies or they feel an obligation or that's just their personality, right? And it's also people who we feel like anyone would talk to and open up to, and they've got the ability to have that cadence with someone, and the courage to ask a hard question, right? There's this really toxic thing that athletes do, that men do, that women do too, but this fake front, right? And I'm guilty of it as well, where I don't think I've ever answered the question, how are you doing, without answering great. Like, and I could be, someone told me that I could be like knee deep in a swamp and they'd be like, how you doing? I'll be like, it looks good. And that's just my mentality. And it could be the cause of a mental health thing later in life, right? Because I just don't get the help I require. But, the more we kind of break that down. So our team captains are people who are not afraid to break down those walls, not afraid to have a hard conversation, and are also socially tapped in enough to know what's going on, which is important.
And so what have you found? What have you guys found through these conversations? Because I'm sure some people will do the exact same thing that you do, which is say, I'm good, all is well. Like what have you guys found that has been useful and helpful through the outreach that you've been doing to former Buffs?
What I found is that community of 5, those guys you went through, that you sat around your locker, right? Your linebacking core, your pitching staff, your third baseman, your gymnast, whatever it is. Every one of those 5 people is always bonded. And regardless of the situation, regardless of the outcomes, people want to hear from that group again, right? They want to have that connection to someone that, hey, you knew me at my best. You knew me when I was thinner, when I had hair. You knew me when I was a world beater. Like, let's get back to that. And that's the piece that I think people are really anxious to be a part of again, and to have those camaraderie piece. I'm also actually really surprised at how much people want to talk about this conversation and open up. But there's this thin sheet of glass that's just in front of someone's face preventing them. So when we ask that one question, and we train a lot of our guys, our team captains, our board members, have that one conversation, right? No, are you really okay, right? Are you okay is a simple, real compact statement that can get that wall broken and start that conversation up. So those are probably the 2 things I think are most surprising, is how powerful that network is, and then also how to get someone to start talking, and how much people want to be empathizing and telling you their stories and getting help for them. But there's that little piece holding them back.